Hello again, race fans, and welcome to the second race of Season 15. It's 72 laps, and no, the title on the race there at the right-hand side of the screen, that was no typo. Lots of parts flying everywhere is the theme for today, and welcome to Talladega Superspeedway, Talladega, Alabama, 2.66 miles around this track. Goodness knows why they built it so big. Didn't they know Indy cars would be here going 260 miles per hour? Well, of course, in real life they don't, but here, virtual iRacing, we have the ability to go side by side at 260 miles an hour in the Dallara IR-18 IndyCars, and the US IndyCar League's competitors are the brave warriors who are set to do so today. As I mentioned, 72 laps that we will be doing here today at Talladega, and every single moment you will be on the edge of your seat waiting to find out, will there be lots of parts flying everywhere? It is presented by Stick Quick. As always, we're set to do basically 190 miles here today. So we're going to line up anyway out there on the track and do some qualifying. Of course, as those of you who have been watching IndyCar for some time, and of course, you know, those of you who are fans of the series, they go to big ovals if they ever do again. Qualifying doesn't really mean anything. But, you know, as you see David Zaleski there on your screen, it is important to say that I can get around this big, flat, wide open track. Not that the elevation is flat, but that you're flat out the entire time going around this track, always on that accelerator. And so maybe it's a point of pride. Maybe it's a chance to control the race at the very beginning from the front. You know, start things out the right way. Either way, we get to see who is the fastest here in qualifying, and we'll be able to set our field for today's race, as always. So there you see on the left-hand side of the screen, the scoring pylon, and we are watching David Zaleski on the screen. As we come into this race, of course, winner last week for the first race of the season was, in fact, just carrying over some of that good old Australian luck from season 14, where he managed to clinch his fourth consecutive victory, or fourth consecutive championship, rather, here in the US IndyCar League. That, of course, being Graham Bunyan, and also taking the victory last week, so setting himself up for, I'm sorry, excuse me, Ryan Bowles taking the victory last week, and Graham Bunyan coming back to be able to hopefully set himself up for a good championship run this season. Ryan Bowles, of course, taking that victory, it's going to set himself up for a championship run. I don't see him out there qualifying at the moment, but soon enough we will probably see him taking to the track. As I mentioned, some of these drivers maybe don't even want to go out and qualify. You could just start at the back. Doesn't really matter. Plenty of time to race your way forward. There you saw a quick shot of Graham Bunyan, and here's Dominic Hart making his way around. Soon to take second position. As you can see, he had the fastest Sector 2 time. See if we can get their best times up there so it's a little bit easier to tell. But there it is on the left-hand side of the screen. So Hart there in second place. Hart, very fast driver. Fortunately taken out of last week's race a little early. David Zaleski coming back and getting third place. There was Jason Lowe slowing down and coming to a rest on the track. Fourth place thus far for Lowe. And here is Will Stearns coasting along there on the backstretch. He's managed to snag himself a crafty fifth place for today's race. Here's Joe Brickey for Black Tiger Racing. Danny Alt did make it around the track. That is wonderful news for the Danny Alt fans. So Rick Lovison also managing to get in a qualifying lap. And there at the very last moment, well, actually not the last moment, we still have about another minute and some remaining here. It's actually not showing in our scoring pylon, but we have about a minute, 20 seconds remaining. Most of the other drivers have already been out for their qualifying laps, but David Strid here with this US IndyCar new livery on his car. Very exciting. Bringing some of that Chip Ganassi luck, hopefully, out there and might be able to the Jimmy Johnson ride, the 48. So might be able to capitalize on some of that championship success of a guy like Jimmy Johnson. Of course, David Strid, one of the faster drivers here in the US IndyCar League, and no surprise to see him take pole position. Will he convert it today into possibly a podium finish or maybe even a win? He has the capability, but all of that, of course, is all up to him. And to whether or not he is part of the lots of flying pieces flying everywhere, whether he's involved in that or not. Now, we have some other drivers completing their qualifying laps. Here's Dan Ensch, good friend to the broadcast, and my former teammate over at Last Lap Motorsports, racing for ALZ.org, as he does every week. He managed to get in 10th place qualifying there, but as you can see, that is the end of qualifying. You only get so long, and you need to put in your time. So, let's see how they will indeed stack up for today's race as they begin to grid up out on the track. So, there you can see it. It is David Strid who will be on pole position ahead of Graham Bunyan, his teammate, starting right alongside. Apologize if there's any static. I'm trying to figure out what in the world is causing this little bit of static in our voice communication. There we go. Never need static in this world. Starting on the second row, Dominic Hart will be alongside David Zaleski. And again, these are two speedy drivers who one would definitely circle either one of these drivers as a as definitely somebody who could take victory today. Starting in the third row, Jason Lowe. He had second place last week. Could continue this week, racing, of course, for Rescue Ranch. Will Stearns going to be starting alongside Jason. Something for all these competitors to watch out for. Is it Will, the race winning potential Will? We will find out today. James Kennedy going to be starting next to Joe Brickey. And then Mr. Stickwick, Richard Kelbaugh next to Dan Ensch. Mauro Ramirez next to Gideon Keeling, who is in for today's race, the first race of this season that we have seen Gideon. Also, good note about Mauro Ramirez, which I'll get back to here in a second. And advance our grid here. Take a look. It's Ryan Bowles, last week's winner. And very, very, very much could be back in position today to win. Again, sporting that livery, which is not Robert Wickens derived, but since he won last week, I think he'll be keeping that one on there. Danny Alt going to be starting next to him. And David Worrell next to Rick Lovison. Stefan Harding next to Mike West. Manuel Gomez Esteban and Iñigo Mardones. And Fahim Rahman will bring up the field. So great to have all of these drivers in the field. Over 20 cars starting, although unfortunately we are seeing the Fahim Rahman does not appear to be connected. So we did unfortunately lose him. But this, I believe, one of the very first races where we have had over 20 cars for the US IndyCar League. So congratulations to Jason Lowe and to everybody who has wanted to be involved with this and get out there and take the fight to somebody like Graham Bunyan and David Strid. Honestly, it is so much fun to see those guys actually have to work and go side by side and use some of their trickery that they have acquired over the years to be able to make those passes. And so what are we going to see today? Well, this track is so long. They are just now going to be headed through turn 3. This is a very, very long pace lap. So, you know, what are we going to see today? I think we're going to see a lot of patience, if I'm being quite honest. Yes, we will see. This is Talladega, and we will see a lot of passing. We will see a lot of drafting. It's not going to probably too much rely on tire degradation or anything like that. Fuel strategy will be important and when those yellows fly. So I think more than anything, You want to stay in the draft here, not lose that lead draft especially, and make those right calls on pit lane. When to do that, we don't know, but we'll find out in 72 laps who's got all those right answers. We're going to start this one off with David Strid at the pole. He's got a new paint job. Perhaps with that pole position, a new outlook on this season, and maybe, just maybe, we will see David Strid in victory lane there with that Jimmy Johnson livery, which is, I think, something that a lot of real-life IndyCar fans have been wanting to see. And we are underway here at Talladega. Green flag for David Strid. Leading Graham Bunyan down with Dominic Hart just behind. And David Zaleski falling into place. There's Jason Lowe and Will Stearns fighting it out side by side. Stearns tucks in behind Lowe. These two continue. You see quite a bit of shuffling a little bit further back. That's Joe Brickey getting around Mr. Stickwick, Richard Kelbaugh. And just behind, there's Ryan Bowles already coming around. Ryan Bowles on the outside. He takes one car. He's looking for another. There he is on the outside of Richard Kelbaugh as well. Again, these very early going here at Talladega. None of these drivers really have to do anything anytime soon. A lot of this is just positioning, making sure you're in the right place at the right time. I believe that is Fahim Rahman. Yes, it is. Fahim Rahman slow down there on the pit lane. So he did make it into today's race, giving us a full 21-car field. Exciting stuff here in the US IndyCar League. Once again, you are watching live here on VirtualRacing.Network, so great to have you with us. If you're not already subscribed, make sure to subscribe, hit that big red subscribe button, and like this broadcast for more as we get set to watch this one unfold. Here comes Stefan Harding around the outside, and he's towing Ryan Bowles with him. Now the work on the outside of Dominic Hart for third position. There comes that blue and white machine of Stefan Harding, and I did have a chance to find out that Stefan is not actually in relation to the Harding-Steinbrenner group, but he just loves that livery. It's got his name on it, and shoot, if there was a Greenfield livery out there, I'd probably be racing that as well. But nevertheless, here's on board with Stefan Harding. They just in that camera over the roll hoop and the aero screen on the Dallara IR-18 IndyCar. So as Harding kind of stalls out here, it looked like he was making a lot of progress with Ryan Bowles in tow, but now you can see it really starting to stack up behind. This is a 19-car field separated by just 1.5 seconds. Now you see Harding running up the track a little bit. Looks like he's got Dan Ensch behind him now. Harding tries to slot in front of Bowles and between him and Zaleski. But back up at the front, it is David Strid who continues to lead. Looking out the back, it's Strid and then Bunyan, Hart. That's the way that they started, as well as Zaleski in fourth. That's the way they all started, still holding position. Nobody trying to take over that lead position from David Strid yet. Of course, to do that, they'll have to get by very tenacious David Strid. Looking back in fifth place, this is, of course, Stefan Harding. As you can see, 51-year-old driver from Melbourne, Australia. Great to have another Aussie in the group, adding to our international flair. Currently, right now, 3 different nationalities represented in our top 5. So, just awesome to see that internationality continuing. And, of course, such a great history of Australian drivers and racers over the years. Of course, Will Power right now, just one of those guys that every single week in the real life league could be out there winning. You see some drivers really taking some high lines and some evasive action in the back. That's Dan Ensch just following no, that's not Stefan Harding. That's Rick Lovison just in front. So here's Lovison racing for Berkshire Lakefront Lodge. Always carrying that awesome 4-color wrap on there that it's out there in the sun. You can see the trees. You can see the lake. Looks like a place I'd like to visit sometime. But we are currently 7 laps of the way through this one. Sorry, we're working on lap 7 here. 6 laps done. And nothing's changed in the top 4. Instead, what we've got is Rick Lovison, who's gained 12 spots. Yes, it was Stefan Harding who was the top mover and shaker so far, but Rick Lovison showing that he's got what it takes to march forward in this draft as well. So once again, early goings here in Talladega. We now jump on board with Rick Lovison, and we can see that inside line there as we're working our way and side drafting around the outside. Sometimes it works in your favor to be on that outside line, especially if it pinches the inside guys a little bit. You work that outside line, you can get a good run off of the final corner. A lot of times get that run down the straightaway, make the pass in the draft. But here at Talladega, these cars are wide open and there's not much pinching going on, and just the slightly shorter circumference of the oval going around the shorter route of the inside gives the drivers on the inside a chance to eke that room or those spaces back out. So it's kind of a wash here at a place like Talladega. So very difficult to pass. You would assume because of the draft it would be just so easy to pass, but in a lot of ways you're not wanting to pass to save fuel potentially. But then also, even if you can make a pass, it just in the same situation, if it's your air and clean air versus somebody else's car and clean air, it's a stalemate. You're both running the same speed, and you're both, not able to take advantage on the track. So in many ways, this is similar to a D-shaped oval, where you just never really get the opportunity to get enough ground on the outside or to find an advantage. And so that will be the difficulty today, finding that way around even when there is no way. And that's really the time that you want to be, that you want to have your name be Graham Bunyan or Jason Lowe or David Zaleski, one of these drivers that knows how to slice and dice and get it done when the time has come. Sorry for the rhyme, if it was rhyming. In the meantime, we are just having a blast out here. It looks like we're still under the safety car at 260 miles an hour. We're stacked up 2 wide. It's the 405 freeway in LA. Except honestly, I used to drive that on the commute, and we used to get a lot closer than this. There's some pretty sketchy stuff goes on that freeway. These drivers much cleaner. I'd much rather race with these guys than not do that commute. But Rick Lovison is still holding tight on that outside line around the outside of Dominic Hart. Still trying to capture that 3rd spot, and he's got a lot of helpers. No surprise to see longtime veteran just behind Dan Ensch. Of course, always trying to represent the Alzheimer's Association and their efforts to end ALZ. But Dan's also known as the fuel-saving guru here, and this just might be one of the days where he gets to put that to test. This would be a track where if it did go green the whole way, there is a lot of fuel savings to be done. As you can imagine, at 260 miles an hour, there is a lot of drag on these cars, and so if you can get into the slipstream of the car in front, you can capitalize on that, take your foot out of the throttle, and save fuel. And that is the key here. Not to mention, of course, in the cockpit itself, we go on board. You can't really see the controls, but they are there. iRacing actually maps all this stuff out. And these cars are all laser scanned, so it's there. But there are knobs on the steering wheel. There are a couple of levers and jackers, as you see Dan Ensch there kind of struggling with the air in front and some different movements some drivers are making ahead. That's Stefan Harding and Rick Lovison who are fighting it out there. Stefan Harding getting ahead of Lovison into that 4th spot. So as they continue to jockey around, just to finish my point, these drivers also have that fuel mixture button. Now, this is an interesting thing because it really does give you the ability to control how much power you want and versus how much fuel you're using. So more fuel equals more power, but of course you can't make it as many laps as everybody else. So it is a trade-off. Now, one of the funniest things that is possible is I have heard some wacky stuff about being in the draft. Now, I'm not going to give away any secrets, but I'm just going to say some people get really aggressive with that fuel map sometimes and lean that car out to points where you wouldn't think that you can. Normally, once you get up to, like, say, fuel map 3, you definitely start noticing, and it goes from 1 full rich all the way up to 8. But if you start working your way up that number, as soon as you get to 3, you start noticing a loss in performance. But there is ways to mitigate that by staying in someone's draft. So it really becomes, if you're trying to fuel save, it really becomes about how far can you go? How low can you go? Or in this case, how high can you go to lean the car out? I have heard stories of some drivers in green flag laps that have had to desperately save fuel. And as we see Mauro Ramirez for Black Tiger Racing now coming into the picture, getting up into the 4th spot and making this a race. We're also seeing Ryan Bowles on his tail as they press around the outside of Stefan Harding there for that 3rd spot. But I have heard some drivers using Fuel Map 8, which is supposed to only be used for cautions. But apparently under the right circumstances, if you're saving fuel and you got the right circumstances, you can even use that, which is crazy fuel savings. So these drivers do have quite a bit to do and quite a bit of strategy to work out. And they can do it all from their cockpit and having a Sunday drive at 260 miles an hour. Just imagine, here's from Mauro Ramirez's point of view. Racing out of North Richland Hills, Texas, which, of course, as he calls it, NRH. And racing for Black Tiger Racing there. You can see from his perspective, this is what you see. And now we see David Strid. If I can, my goodness, he's falling through the field so quickly. There he is. David Strid and David Zaleski, as well as Rick Lovison, all these drivers in on the same lap, and so they will refuel and take on service, and that will give over the lead to Graham Bunyan. So now is the part where the strategies start to shake out. So if you had David Strid out there the entire time, we'll have to see how far Graham Bunyan can make it at this point, because can he make it 2 extra laps? Can he make it 3 laps? We've got a lot of drivers coming into the pits. There is Mauro Ramirez, Stefan Harding, Joe Brickey, and Gideon Keeling all into the pits here. And by the way, while we've got him on the screen, great announcement from the US IndyCar League this last week. Mauro Ramirez taking over the duties as the series chief steward. And just as I say that, he may have some work to do after this race, possibly, because look at how this has jumbled up. Graham Bunyan still leads, but now he's pulling into the pits, and that will leave Dominic Hart and Jason Lowe out there. Look at this, 3 wide across the stripe. It was Lowe who officially led that lap, I believe, and Dominic Hart there on your screen, 46-year-old, is now currently pushed ahead in that pink car out front. So these two fighting it out side by side. There's a look from Lowe's machine. He's got to get into the pits. Nope. We did see one of the drivers. We've got David Worrell. It's Dave in the Cave stopping, as well as Dan Ensch, Will Stearns, and Danny Alt. There's Dave Worrell having a problem there. Looks like he got spun around and maybe tagged the wall. Let's see if we can tell. We'll go back to that in a minute. Meantime, we want to catch you up with what is happening at the front. This is Dominic Hart, James Kennedy. James Kennedy, we haven't even talked about James Kennedy. Kennedy's a winner here in the US IndyCar League. You can't take that away from him. Who doesn't want to win at Talladega? But as you can see, I think all these drivers are coming in right now. We also have a note that Rick Lovison may have crashed. I hear body parts flying. Who has crashed? That is what we want to know. Let's go back to the picture there. And it is Manuel Gomez-Esteban who's coming in to take service there. Not quite sure. They try to flip around who it was. It could have been Gomez-Esteban. Got Dominic Hart jumping to the pits. So is this it? We're going to go back and watch this. In fact, this must be it. That's why I was seeing this pink car. Dominic doesn't usually have this paint scheme. So coming into the pits, he just sort of loops it on entry. Very easy to do. And so he had to get it straightened out, get it back on track. This is Manuel Gomez-Esteban right in front of Ryan Bowles. They are racing for 15th place, but let's get back up to the front and recap where we're at. Well, David Strid rejoined just in front of Graham Bunyan while some of that chaos was happening in the pits. And now we've got Strid, Bunyan, Zaleski, Ensch, and Ramirez, your top 5. So we've still got drivers pitting. Iñigo Mardones and Will Stearns back into the pits. Looks like Rick Lovison might be done. He's been parked for a while, and I think he just got out, so unfortunate for him. However, we do have a new driver that has emerged at the very front, and that is Dan Ensch. So, Dan racing for alls.org, Last Lap Motorsports, being able to really work some of that drafting magic today. And as we talked to him last week, we talked to Dan last week, and he said that the opinion of some of the other drivers was that he just needed to go for it sometimes, and he's tried to make an effort to do that, and I think that this is one of those examples of trying to do that. Now, here's somebody else who's going for it. This is David Zaleski. Actually, on your screen, the name box says Stefan Harding, but that's because Zaleski just moved out of the picture. There we go. Zaleski, there in 5th. The orange and black machine at the center of the screen. He knows how to get it done. He just set the fastest lap a moment ago. And some inside, outside, outside, inside action from Stefan Harding, who looks like he's getting a little impatient and sitting there in 5th place in this pack. He's got a long time to go. It's we still got close to 50 laps, just under 50 laps to go now, so still a lot of racing to be done here at Talladega. It's David Strid who leads us as we get set to start our 27th lap. Graham Bunyan in 2nd, David Zaleski in 3rd, Stefan Harding 4th, Dan Ensch, your top 5, Mauro Ramirez, James Kennedy, Joe Brickey, Jason Lowe, Gideon Keeling, Mike West, Richard Kelbaugh, Ryan Bowles, and Manuel Gomez-Esteban, and Danny Alt. Let's get a photo of Danny Alt out there getting in some paint. Some paint, some racing. I just saw his paint. Liquid Death. Explains so much, Danny. Well, Danny is getting in some laps, and he's side by side right now, racing for 14th place with Manuel Gomez-Esteban. And that's a great sight to see. Like I said, so many weeks we see Danny Alt show up and not be able to get into the race. But different story today. But back up at the front, it is, of course, David Strid leading Graham Bunyan and David Zaleski. And it's still the same deal. 1.5 seconds covering the top 12 cars. So in the meantime, you're seeing Will Stearns, unfortunately, going down a lap. So why don't we see what it's like to ride around here Let's pick somebody. Let's go with the new chief steward of the league, Mauro Ramirez. We'll go ahead and jump into the cockpit with Mauro. Here's what it's like to ride around Talladega Superspeedway. Well, that one kind of sounded like a scrape. But you never know. That possibly could be our connection. It may or may not have been a scrape. And then again, even if it's a scrape, do we know if it's a game over mistake? Well, he doesn't seem to be slowing that much, but Mauro has kind of started to drop back a little bit. And those types of little scuffs, which again, we don't have a camera that quite focuses on that side, but those type of little scuffs are the ones that can do damage. And unfortunately, you may not realize it, but that little scuff can knock out the aerodynamics on the car to the point where, or mess up the toe or something like that, to the point where it can cost you 1, 2, 3 tenths of a second a lap, depending on where you're at. So we're seeing Mauro drift back a little bit. I don't know if that's the case, but that is one of the factors you do have to be aware of. And just one of those things with, we talk about what it's like to race these cars at speed and keeping the car out of the wall and making all of these strategies, etc. But that is one of the absolute biggest factors in these Indy cars, is just making sure that you don't accidentally drift up. And I mean, it's not like crashing. I mean, when you crash, you're out of control somewhat, or you come into contact with another car or something like that, and you write off a big chunk of the car. But when you scrape the wall, sometimes it can be just as simple as, oh, I wanted to put a little bit more turning radius into the corner, or I just wasn't watching it on the exit, and the car drifted out just a little bit wider. You no matter how stable and sure these cars may seem, they will surprise you. They are not stable, and often the tires are going off frequently. And so you just have to stay on top of it and make sure that even in this wind buffeting that can happen in the space behind one of these Indy cars, that you account for that. And if you're following behind, say, 1 or 2 cars, that you account that it's going to take some of the downforce off of that front nose and make it so that it's more difficult to turn. So while I was just talking, of course, on your screen, you now see Gideon Keeling. And Gideon had gotten all the way up there into second, racing side by side with Graham Bunyan. Now slipped back just a little bit and is racing side by side with David Zaleski in the orange and black car. But Gideon making a big name for himself here in the early going, as we are just now halfway, or just getting to halfway in this race. So just one more lap and we will be there. And so Gideon positioning himself, every other driver in this field positioning themselves for where they want to be at the end of this one. It's a good time if you've got a drafting partner, like the top 2 are working together. If you've got a friend in the field that you can work with, it's going to be a good chance to come forward and start positioning yourself up towards the front. So speaking of which, and drafting partners and who's working with whom, it does stand to note that, and that is just, I was going to make a point, David Strid now making his way into the pits. Gets down to speed. And it looks like that was a pretty safe pit entry. So that's actually going to turn over the lead, as you can imagine, to Graham Bunyan. And that means that David Zaleski is now in second place. And so we're going to see whether or not Zaleski wants even to take over that first place and have to burn a little bit more fuel, or whether he's going to just simply be able to drift backwards and hold position if other drivers do want to march forward. All kinds of strategies you can do here. I mean, for example, you do see, if we flash the camera back, at the very end of this pack is Dan Ensch. And once again, there's different decision-making to be done here. You know, one of the decisions is, do you even want to be up in that front group? Certainly when things start to get hectic, which they can around pit stop time, and obviously at the end of the race and after cautions and things like that, as we've got some more drivers coming into the pits. I believe we've got David Zaleski there and Joe Bricky, as well as David Worrell, making their ways into the pits. But yeah, you want to just look out for any potential danger. So if I've done this many a times myself in these races, where you basically just want to let them sort it out for the majority of the race up at the front, and obviously take advantage if you can, but let them sort it out and then position yourself at the very end. There's no reason to be up there fighting and trying to challenge for position. But we do have a note that Joe Bricky has crashed. Trying to find that. There it is. So Joe Bricky, Black Tiger Racing, having a crash, although that could be... Oh, he just had left pit lane. So this is a replay. My goodness. That was just a simple step on the accelerator and right around it goes. Let's watch that again. It's almost not easy to do. If we can watch from the roll bar here. I mean, that makes it look like like the old days of ice racing instead of iRacing. But we've got lots of drivers into the pits now. Graham Bunyan, your leader in the pits. Mike West, Richard Kelbaugh, Ryan Bowles, and Danny Alt, all in the pits at the moment. Will Stearns as well. Fahim Rahman taking service. So here's Bunyan at the center of your screen. Down and away he goes. Richard Kelbaugh, Ryan Bowles, Danny Alt still in the pits. Jason Lowe now making his way into the pits from third place on the track. And so what that does is it actually gives over the lead. I'm not sure if he officially led this last lap, but for our one of our seniors in the field, I was going to say our senior in the field, but we have quite a few seniors in the field. Dan Ensch had led that lap, I believe, but now James Kennedy has gone by. So Kennedy, Ensch, and Gomez Esteban are due in, I believe, this lap. And Ensch and Kennedy come together. There's damage to Kennedy's car. Kennedy tows back to the pits. It's probably a safe call there. And that was unfortunate stuff for our leaders. See if we can understand what just happened. We're going to watch this as they enter the pits from on board with Dan. But I just have a feeling that, yes, in fact, Dan was trying to get a little bit better of an entry and looked like it was just a little slow there for Kennedy coming into the pits, a little slower than Dan was expecting. So that's the type of stuff that can catch you out. And then now Dan is sitting there on pit road having to take repairs. Unfortunate stuff for a guy that was just doing some good things. He and Kennedy were just there in the lead. And, you know, the great hand of misfortune strikes again. Poor Dan Ensch is just, I don't know. He's got a magnet for that hand of misfortune. We'll have to look at changing his lucky horseshoe or something. But we're back up at the front, and we can see here it is, of course, David Stritt and David Zaleski. Graham Bunyan on the outside, which is a bit different than it was just a moment ago. He had been protecting the inside, but it's managed to allow Zaleski in between Bunyan and Stritt. And so now Stritt in that bright blue colored car up at the front, just ahead of the orange and black of Zaleski. And these two have been at the front in one way or another this whole race. Now, coming on the outside, coming up quickly, is Stefan Harding, once again making his place known and trying to thoroughly provide an Australian sandwich around and a sort of Australian flanking around the lone American there in the top four. That's David Zaleski. I'll refrain from making Vegemite sandwich jokes, but good stuff. Good stuff. Love that stuff. Stefan Harding tucks in to 5th place. Could not quite get by fellow countryman Bunyan, and so now you can see he's trying to look for a spot as Gideon Keeling in that black and not really sure what to call that color. Kind of a hot fluorescent or a hot turquoise. I'm not. It's a great color on Keeling's car. Very punchy color. We saw. Is that Mike West drifting up the track there? In fact, it was just a moment ago. You can see him up there high on the track. Looks like he got a little bit of aero push, and that set him back. So, again, just another factor. And now you do see Dan Ensch in the mix here, and unfortunately, Ensch is now down a lap after that incident that he had with Kennedy on pit road. So he is not actually a factor here, but the rules of the league do allow him to fight for his lap back. So you can expect Ensch, especially with his newfound motto of just going for it. Like Ensch is like got his Nike swooshes on his side. It's just do it. That's what he's rolling on now. But unfortunately, he's going to have to just do it from a lap down and wait for a caution to get that lap back. So we'll see whether that can happen for him. But in the meantime, this is reduced. Now, we had like a 20-car field earlier that was just separated by 1.5 seconds. Now it is less than a second from first back to 8th. So if you're Mike West here at the back, this is what it looks like. That's how far it is. You can certainly see the leader from there, less than a second away. But at these speeds, you cover a lot of ground very, very quickly. 24 laps remaining. And right now it's looking like an 8-car picture. Actually, not really sure. We'll have to go see if we can figure out how far back Richard Kelbaugh. Okay, 6.6 seconds. I wasn't getting the update on my software, but 6.6 back seconds back, you find Richard Kelbaugh, and that's Will Stearns behind him, but he also is not racing for that position. He's a little bit further back, a lap down. So back up front, though, we've got Mauro Ramirez sliding in behind Jason Lowe, and racing side by side again, just up in front. That is Dan Ensch trying to get that lap back, and of course he's racing alongside his good friend, rather I should say his regular competitor in this series and friend, David Zaleski. And of course, they do a lot of work. I should mention that they do a lot of work together. Strid, Zaleski, Bunyan, Jason Lowe, and now Mauro Ramirez, all part, and also Dan Ensch, all part of that kind of core team that runs this US IndyCar League. And so Zaleski updating the points and handling a lot of that end of it, and the Sim Racer Hub stuff, which is where we keep a lot of the statistics and the schedule. So if you're curious, you can head over there and find US IndyCar League, and there's actually a lot of statistical information there as well. There you see Gideon. I'm going to have to keep chasing myself to say I don't say that, but Gideon Keeling there on the outside, moving into that second spot around the outside of Zaleski. Will they make a charge for first? It's certainly 3 wide for second across the stripe, and Jason Lowe comes out of nowhere to take second across the line that time. So you see how quickly things can go from nose to tail and follow the leader to a bit hectic here. We're just trying to keep all these snakes in a basket, make sure we don't have lots of car parts flying all over the place here before too long. Maybe sliding across the start-finish stripe, they all sort of are erupting into a big ball of flame. I don't know. I hope that's not what happens, but it would certainly live up to the race title. And of course, the beautiful part here on iRacing is this is all virtual. So anything that would happen, these drivers won't be hurt unless they have a direct drive wheel and keep their hands on the wheel or something, and could hurt a little bit. But continuing with that, David Strid, frequently, not as only, one of the fastest guys, etc., but he builds a lot of the setups for the league. So Strid is there building setups and revising them and trying to make them raceable and good for Sunday race day. He shows up for the Saturday session. They improve the setup. So the admin team and really anybody else who wants to come out for the Saturday session can help out in those setups. And, as somebody who's built setups, I can just tell you flat out, there's no way to cheat them. It's just that David Strid and Graham Bunyan really are that fast week in and week out. It has nothing to do with the fact that David is the primary supplier of setups for the league. I don't know. I was looking at Dan's notes here earlier today. I apologize if I don't have that. I don't have that information right in front of me here. Let's see here. So, no, I did not get that info from Dan. But, nevertheless, you see what's happened here. It's now Strid into the pits, Zaleski and Lowe side by side. As Strid left, it now has opened the door, and whoever wants that first is going for it. But I tell you what, this guy right here, David Zaleski, I mean, we talked to him last week because he was on the podium. He is one heck of a racer, and we've got a couple of drivers heading to the pits. That is Graham Bunyan, Jason Lowe, and Mike West making their way in for their final stop. Green flag stops, as we've had a lot of green flag racing here at Talladega. I tell you, it's not the most exciting to race because there's so much time where you are playing follow the leader, and sometimes it can be a bit hectic to race in it, as you can imagine, with all of the drafting passes that can happen. But it's pretty interesting how you can go, so many laps, 56 laps without a caution. And you'd think, well, it's such a fast track, as we see David Zaleski coming in, and how can it possibly, as we see also Ryan Bowles there, and Dominic Hart. Unfortunately, Dominic Hart, of course, one of those drivers that had an incident earlier and it has now been caught a lap down. But just to finish the original point, talking about the drivers that are helping out and the teams that are helping out, as Zaleski finishes his pit stop, comes back out. Zaleski updating all of those points, etc. He's a fast racer. He can only part-time race because he has a very busy schedule. And there we have an incident entering the pits. It's Mauro Ramirez and Stefan Harding on entry. Also Gideon Keeling. I'm not sure if he if Gideon had there goes Gideon sliding around, unfortunately, on the track surface. Trying to get a good camera for you. So these two coming together as they came into the pits. Let's go back and see if we can figure out how that happened. Pit lane, left pit lane, entered pit lane. Just trying to backtrack this to where it happened. So let's see. This probably is them coming into the pits. So, yes, it is. And they're on the outside of Stefan Harding. And there it looks like it's kind of similar to the earlier incident. And unfortunately, also Stefan getting a piece of Gideon Keeling. So, I have a feeling that all of these drivers have since had to take repairs. And so we are now seeing them on pit lane and unfortunately having to do exactly that. So very unfortunate news for these drivers who were having a great race. Find themselves set back just a little bit. But once again, that's been the story today. I was just talking about how we have gone green flag racing this whole race. It's one of the things is it's a wide track and it gives you lots of room. And you're operating at the same speed all the time, pretty much. So, you know, being able to stay in the draft, so to speak, or not crash into people is a lot easier, say, at a track like this than a lot tighter of a track that's equally fast, like Texas or someplace like that. Nevertheless, so, you know, then you have a couple of different drivers as we're focused on Mauro Ramirez here, but we should take a look up at Manuel Gomez Esteban, who is currently shown in the lead of this race. Congratulations to Gomez Esteban, leading a lap here with 13 to go, but he will need to stop for that final stop. So he'll need to pull it in, and that will give it over in a moment to David Zaleski. And, once again, he's a part-time racer, but anytime he's in the field, he is super fast. And he's going to have his hands filled here with 13 to go to be able to hold on to this position and possibly take victory. As you see, David Strid now working on the outside. Graham Bunyan looking to work on him as well. Mike West, another part of that unofficial teammate brigade of West and Bowles, Bunyan, Strid. I don't think Stefan Harding is their teammate, but I believe that he's one of their friends. And so a lot of these drivers do know each other in the field. Danny Alt, also part of their clique. And a couple of other well-known drivers, including AJ Burton, who stopped in last season and just won. So great to see these oval masters at work. But yeah, they have a lot of friends, David Strid, Graham Bunyan, etc. Dan Ensch now pitting out of 7th position he was in. Bringing the 52 down for the final time today. Back up to the lead, side by side. Zaleski and Strid. Now Strid dropping just off the flank. And keeping Zaleski to the inside and within reach. In fact, marching right out there into the lead. So I don't know if Zaleski pulled his foot off the pedal a little bit, wants to save a tiny bit of fuel. Been doing some leading. Wants to make sure he can get there to the end. Or possibly wants to give up that position so that he can go and challenge for the end. Continuing with those who do stuff for the league, you know, obviously, as I mentioned, Strid and Graham Bunyan sometimes is a part of that testing team, but obviously just his expertise alone sometimes can really help test the car very quickly and get back to Strid with what possibly they're going to need for the day. As now you can see West taking over 2nd place and looking to take over 1st. Will he lead this time by? And go ahead and give that bonus point to Mike West, who comes out of nowhere and manages to get that lap led and add to that points total. Very smart maneuvering for the driver from Yakima, Washington, and I think my closest nearby driver. As I always like to say, just over the hill. We'll have to go and have some applets and cotlets from Washington and talk about Washington things together. Perhaps go out to Spokane International Raceway. There's a facility. Back to it here. Mike West now in second place, so I guess don't count him out. He hasn't been up there in the front, but Mike has taken victory here. I remember it very well. It was one of the very first races that we covered here at VirtualRacing.Network for the US IndyCar League. I believe it was season 11, and it was a fuel mileage race, and Mike was in the right place at the right time. But as we've seen with the pit road incidents, and as we have seen with perhaps dragging against the wall and coming off of pit lane and spinning it and unfortunately tagging the wall, sometimes surviving and being in the right place at the right time is the right call. It's not even about how well you execute necessarily. Sometimes it's just about keeping that car on the track and pushing the correct buttons instead of laying too much on the accelerator or forgetting to adjust a weight jacker or any of those things that have caught out some of these other competitors. So we are just 7 laps to go, and Strid is leading Mike West and David Zaleski. So continuing with that group who works here with the league. Of course, you got Dan Ensch, who's out there every Saturday helping out the team or the league, and see some more drivers falling off the back end there. So now it's Strid, West, Zaleski, Bunyan, and Lowe in that top 5. And you see it's 11 seconds back to Ryan Bowles. So at this point, you pretty much count him out. But any one of these top 5 will have a shot here at the end. Lowe kind of holding on to the back and hopefully trying to stay in that draft, so we might have a chance to see him up there. He's going to be really happy, though, no matter what happens, Jason will, because, first of all, Jason is the league administrator. He took over several years ago when there was some other issues happening in the league. They needed somebody to come forward, and Jason's done a fabulous job of doing that. If I could just say, he kept the peace, and that was what was necessary so that we could really let all of the great personalities and the great people who have been racing in this league for all these seasons come forward and challenge. And so Lowe does a great job as the admin. And if you click down in the description, there's a link there. If you want to join these drivers out there on the track, that's how you do it. Just click there and you'll be right over on the iRacing members page. You get a chance to talk with Jason and see if you have a little bit of IndyCar experience. Get out there for a Saturday practice session, and we'll see you out there on VirtualRacing.Network on Sundays. But you'll have your work cut out for you because you got drivers like this guy, David Strid, who week in and week out is fast. As I mentioned, he brings so much to the table in terms of how much he helps the league. And, of course, it wouldn't be complete without saying also about Richard Kelbaugh, who's currently racing in 8th for Team Stick Quick. And of course, I'll have a little bit of a commercial here coming up for Stick Quick just after we finish this race before we get to driver interviews. But for Richard, he has been racing in this league for a long time, and he's also been the series steward for a few seasons, and he needs to step aside, and hopefully he'll get a chance to focus a little bit more on his racing and some of the other stuff going on in his life. I imagine there is just all kinds of stuff going on. I mean, summer's coming up too, and if you got grandkids, you got family, you want to spend time around, it's one of those considerations that can keep you from getting out there so much. But that's why we appreciate all of these drivers and admin who work so hard to keep everything going here in the US IndyCar League. And as a result, 20 cars to start the race today. Okay, let's zero in. We're coming to 1 to go. Everybody's put all their cards onto the table. There's nothing left to hide. It's Strid and West. Bunyan is within closing distance as we are on the final lap here at Talladega. Who will it be? David Zaleski in 4th. You've got Jason Lowe in 5th. Stefan Harding now in that 6th position, but he is well back from this group. West and Strid Strid and West, who will it be? We're racing down the backstretch, 3 wide. It's Zaleski who makes his move through the gap. Here comes, my goodness, it's changing so fast. West tried to come down the inside, couldn't do it. Bunyan made his attempt. We're on the front straight. Just one more tri-oval to go. Here comes Lowe. 3 wide across the front straight, 4 wide, and it's Lowe who takes the win. Jason Lowe, with a last lap pass, makes his name known again in the victory circle here in the US IndyCar League, and literally robs the pocket of David Strid, David Zaleski, and even Mike West, who had been just sitting up there in front. My goodness, also Graham Bunyan, all these drivers left to wonder if they were in the right place at the right time there at the end. That was killer. That's why we go racing at Talladega. My goodness, I hope you enjoyed that one, ladies and gentlemen. So, as Jason Lowe there begins his victory celebration, we are going to, while he is celebrating on the track, we're going to do something side by side here so that you don't miss anything. And that is, we are going to talk about the legendary, the world famous, the sponsor of this race, the Stick Quick. And of course, you see it there on your screen. It's the product that all the best racers in the US IndyCar League uses. I know Jason Lowe's probably got a couple dozen of these things sitting around in his studio. And he's probably got a half a dozen in his racing cockpit holding all kinds of things there together. But I tell you what, the Stick Quick is something else. It's one of those devices that if you didn't know that you needed it, well, now you do, because you can see there on your screen as it goes through. It's on the toolbox. It's on the walls. It's on your medicine cabinet. It's on your pegboard. It will keep everything organized. And how do we possibly keep it organized? Well, it's very simple. The Stick Quick is a silicone, heavy-duty, chemical-resistant silicone ring, which you put around any one of these utensils, devices, pens, pencils, anything you can think of that will fit inside of it, and it auto-magically holds it against anything that is steel, iron, etc. that will accept a magnetic connection. Why? Because it's got that little magnet in there. That's right. Stick it quick to anything that is metal. And if it isn't made out of metal, it comes with a little pad as well. That's right. 6 of these in a package. You get 6 stick-ons as well. They're reusable, so you can move them around once you're done using it in one place. It's a heck of a device. It's one of the secrets of success of the US IndyCar League. And really, it's one of those things that you need in your house, in your office. Give it to your friends. Buy a dozen for your family for all of the upcoming holidays. Hey, it's the 4th of July. Have a Stick Quick. You know, anything you can imagine. Well, there it is on your screen. StickQuick.com. Buy yours today. Tell them the US IndyCar League sent you, and let them know that their sponsorship here has been paying off, and we'll be very appreciative that you've done that. And in the meantime, also, we should mention, for those of you that just saw this commercial, if you too would like to see your business featured here in the US IndyCar League and on broadcast of VirtualRacing.Network, we encourage you to send in your inquiries, because you too can be featured alongside your business on these broadcasts. We have several different options available. So you're going to want to contact Jason Lowe, and you can do that right through that description link below the video. So now we've had a chance to talk about some of the business that goes on behind the US IndyCar League. Why don't we go ahead and talk about some of the drivers who managed to make it happen. Today's race was amazing, and we have David Zaleski to thank for some of those passes out there. So, hey, David, welcome back to the podium chat here after the race, and congratulations on your 3rd place finish here in Talladega. I can almost hear you. If you use push to talk, that should work.
Got me now?
I got you now, David.
Yeah, one hell of a race today, that's for sure.
Tell us what it was like, man. That was some fun stuff. And I circled you because I just know how fast you are at these kind of tracks. You got the Intimidator helmet on and everything. I mean, tell us what it was like out there. You're racing right at the front the whole time. And then what was the last lap like for you?
Well, the last pit stop, I had to save fuel pretty much till the white flag. I didn't really have enough to make it. I had like a half a liter left. Man, that last lap was something. I had to go back and check the replay. I mean, 3-4 wide. And how awesome was that? I had to look great on front.
Oh, man, was it awesome. And your buddy Jason Lowe there coming through with that win. He was sitting back there like the ultimate, cat, what am I thinking of? Cat waiting there. And catbird, there you go, in the catbird seat. That's what they used to call it. I mean, he was just waiting. He came flying by you guys. Do you think that you were in the right place there at the end for that final lap, or did you think there was? Did you want to be where Jason was? Did you want more draft to work with? Did you want to be out in front? What was kind of your plan there, looking at that final lap?
I think Jason was. He was in the driver's seat, and he had the draft he needed. I took the run when I thought I could. It just wasn't enough. My hat's off to David Stridd and Graham Bunyan. Those guys are something to keep up with them all day. I can't thank them enough for all their work at this league and the rest of the members.
Absolutely, and they do it every week. Just like you, we appreciate your work here in the league. We were talking about some of the other members that work together, and it's a great group that runs this league. So thank you for all that you do, and obviously congratulations. Jeez, David, 2 weeks in a row, the first 2 weeks of the season racing, and you're on the podium both weeks. I mean, you're starting off at least in third position in this championship. I mean, you can't just feign like this is an accident. You've got a chance at this thing. How you feeling towards the championship?
The races first. We'll take it by week and see how it goes. I want to send a shout out to Jason. Congratulations to him on the fitness.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for joining us, David. Congrats. Good luck with the rest of your season, man.
Thank you for your podcast and all your work.
Absolutely. My pleasure. I love covering you guys, especially when you make it exciting. So that is, of course, David Zaleski joining us there, and runs all of the points and keeps that stuff updated. Crucial member of the US IndyCar League. And, of course, he was giving a big shout out to Jason Lowe. And Graham Bunyan, and of course we'll bring in Jason Lowe here, and maybe he can talk about it. But absolutely, Graham Bunyan, David Stridd racing everybody clean, and I think that was on display today as well. They didn't do anything aggressive or trying to keep anybody from getting up there into the front. They raced them hard, they raced them clean. And Jason, as you join us now from Victory Lane after you wiping off some of that champagne that's been spraying around. It's pretty cool to see you up here taking victory, but also really cool with the drivers that you're racing against. Congratulations, taking victory here. And of course, your start to the season is a banger right now.
Yeah, man. What a race. What a race. I got a little shaking going on in the adrenaline from that last lap, man. That was, hats off to David Stridd for the setup he brought us. The guys up front, I knew we could race hard and not wreck the cars. And I kind of just thought that I was going to get blocked in the middle lane. I kind of didn't see the path that was going to happen. And then David Stridd decided to go high, and David hugged the bottom, and I had the momentum. And man, I'm thrilled, man. It's great to get another super speedway win. I got Daytona last year. Now I got Talladega. I'm starting to think I got these places a little bit figured out.
Well, and they're different kinds of tracks, different kinds of racing. I mean, Jason, of course, you have this huge history of real life racing, lots of sim racing history. So you know your way around these places, but still you've got to keep it clean. We saw so many drivers having those issues today, not able to keep it clean, making small mistakes, entering the pits, exiting the pits. And as you know, you even just barely touch the wall, it could cost you a couple of miles per hour. you not only kept it clean today, you didn't make any of those mistakes that we've talked about in Season 12, Season 13, things that kept you from winning the championship and keeping up with Graham. You were in the right place at the right time to take advantage, and boy, did you have that momentum. So what's that like to keep it together the whole race? And is there anything you're going to do after this race to look at it and try and analyze it, see if there's anything you can learn from it?
Yeah, well, I'd also like to say I did get together with Rick Lovison early in the race off of turn 2. I'm not exactly sure. I haven't looked at how it happened. I kind of think I may have drifted up into him a little bit, and I certainly apologize to him if that's the case. I'm reasonably sure the accident was my fault. So I did make a mistake there. It just was unintentional. I didn't think he was going to be where he was, and so sorry to Rick for that. Other than that, I was pretty happy with my racecraft. I found a couple in-car adjustments. Even at the super speedway, you can do a couple things to these cars that makes a little bit of a difference. We were all definitely playing the fuel map game. You could run fuel map 8, the leanest setting, for a little while when you were in traffic, and that saved a whole bunch of fuel. I was using Graham, honestly, as when to come in for the last stop, because I know his fuel numbers were always perfect. So when I saw Graham go to the pits toward the end, I knew, hey, it's time to go because we can make it from here. And I actually had plenty of fuel left at the end. That fuel wasn't going to be an issue. I wanted it to be back far enough to get a run, and everyone else seemed to be staying closer together than I thought was the way to go. Graham dropped back a little bit, but I don't think he dropped back enough to get the run that I got, because I had a whale of a run there. Coming off of turn 4, I just said, I've got the momentum if I have a clear path, and I ended up with a clear path. So very happy to be in victory circle. Thanks to Stick Quick for putting the race on for us. Appreciate David Strid's setup. Appreciate racing with Graham. Real happy that my buddy Dave Z got a podium finish today, and had a nice turnout for the league. A couple new members and a couple guys who could come back from the past. So always happy to see them, new faces and old faces. And I don't know, I'm real happy. Thank you, Trevor.
I can tell you're happy. I know this is what you've wanted for a while, to get back up there and be competing for wins and possibly the championship. And obviously you're one of the top competitors here in the league, Jason. Everybody's always got you circled every week, but we'll look forward here. If I can get this up on the screen and get the schedule here, we'll take a look at what we've got coming up. We can talk about that. Next race going to be Chicagoland. Going to be quite different. And we've got Iowa, Atlanta, Auto Club, Texas, Watkins Glen. Nice mix of different stuff. Let's talk about the next race, though. Chicagoland Speedway. What are we going to expect there? Is it going to be the same race? Do you think it'll just be hold the white line down at the bottom and make everyone else pass you on the top? Or do you think there's some tricks that you can pull to get around?
Well, if I'm not mistaken, Chicago may be a night race, I think, which sometimes changes where the fast line on the track is. I like Chicagoland. Sometimes it is hard to pass there, but can count on David Strid to bring a setup that's going to be the most optimal to a good race. So as far as the 1.5 miles go, I think Chicagoland's a good one. Like I said, I like the place, and I was born real close to Chicago in a town called Hinsdale. I've lived in Florida most of my life, but I have some roots in Illinois, so looking forward to going home.
So it's kind of a home race for you. It's sort of like when I was born in SoCal, and when we do Long Beach races, I can't possibly explain to people what it means to me to be there when I've walked down those streets and I've heard those sounds myself so many times and be able to win, even though I'm up here in Seattle. So I get what you're saying, being a little distance from home, but it's great to go back. Hey, Jason, you're always great to talk to. Taking victory here today, but it's a long season, and those guys, David Strid, Graham Bunyan, I mean, we even saw Ryan Bowles up there. There's so many great competitors, 20-plus cars today. Season 15 is looking pretty good. We'll see you next week at Chicagoland. Good luck, man.
Yes, sir. One race at a time. Thank you, Trevor.
Absolutely. My pleasure. That is Jason Lowe reporting in. Of course, he thanks Stick Quick and Richard Kelbaugh, the whole Stick Quick family. They're a great supporter as well. We all thank them from VirtualRacing.Network. and of course, all of those who do the work here in the US IndyCar League, as well as all the competitors who showed up and made today's race a great one. So, same time next week, same channel. Should be used to it by now. It should be in your phone. You should start, circling on your calendar, having plaques made. We'll see if we can get some more posters made. Same time, same channel, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, Sundays, US IndyCar League, right here, VirtualRacing.Network. In the meantime, enjoy the real-life IndyCar series out at Road America today, one of those other great facilities. So have a wonderful rest of your week. This has been a VirtualRacing.Network production, copyright 2022, all rights reserved. Contact us for any sort of business or otherwise inquiries. On behalf of all the competitors, myself, Trevor Greenfield, saying so long, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your week.